Hi guys, and welcome to this video. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and enjoy. I use some reference photos because I tried this thing before, this illustration, without reference photos, and it didn't work out the way I wanted it. So I now use this reference photo just to see what the proportions are of a face of an older woman, especially because I normally draw younger women. I thought it would be good to see what the features are and how to put them in my own illustration. So to show you, this is the illustration that I did before. I wasn't happy with it, didn't like the colors, didn't like the way her face was. It looked too cartoony to me. So I thought it might be better to create a new illustration and show you the complete process. So let's get a new canvas and let's get started. So first I'm going to outline the face and make sure that I get all the proportions right. This is always the most difficult part, but also the fun part, I think. It's really nice to see a face come together in your own or on your own paper, or in this case iPad. Well, by the way, that might be a nice thing to know. I use a screen protector, which is from Paperlike, and it makes your screen feel like paper. So for me, this is the best thing I could have bought, because I really don't like the feeling of having my pencil on a smooth surface. So yeah, I really love it. If you are looking for a nice screen protector and you don't like the smooth surface of an iPad and you want a more natural feel to it, then definitely check out Paperlike, because they are amazing. Anyways, as you can see right now, I have kind of the outside lines, and now I am trying to decide how the face is proportioned, so where it is looking, so which way it is looking, and yeah, where to put everything. So I always use these lines. It's not something I learned in school or anything. I just do what feels most natural to me. So right now I'm kind of trying to put in the shadows that are very obviously in the picture as well, because I think the shadows make the face really, create that really nice contrast. So with the nose, I'm always scared to make the nose too big. I don't know why, but I do it very often. I always want to make a small nose, but for some reason I always make it big. Which might be a good side note. I am not attempting to illustrate the woman you see in the image. She's only a reference, just to get a nice shape of the face and some nice features which I wouldn't have come up with by myself if I had to draw an elderly woman. So for example, the eyes are really deep in the... I have no idea how you would say that, but you know what I mean. The eyes are very deep within the face, and I wouldn't have thought about that, but that's a really nice feature, as well as the wrinkles on top of her lips and the thinness of the lips, and just the wrinkles in general, how her neck shows some loose skin. Yeah, just stuff like that. When you're not used to drawing someone who is older, I think this is more difficult. So yeah, that's why for this illustration I had this reference, not to create this woman, because then it would have looked a lot different, but just to have a feel of what an elderly woman would look like. An elderly woman, I'm sorry. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I also put a reference photo of a hand which is holding a glass, which is holding glasses, because this woman had really big glasses. I'm going to illustrate them right now, and I kind of wanted to create the image in which another hand from someone else is taking off her glasses. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to make them really big, so it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense. That's what I really like. I always really like the combination of something realistic, like the woman self, and then combine that with something which is just not possible. So you start questioning what you are seeing when you see this illustration. That's what I really like. So yeah, right now what I always do is turn around the illustration for a little bit, purely because someone told me once that will help to see whether the proportions are right, and it actually helps because you actually get a better view of what it actually looks like. So what I do now is find a color palette. I always use Pinterest to do this, and I just start to look for color palettes, inspiration, and see what I will like for this illustration. One thing I do know is that the glasses have to be purple. So that's what I'm looking for, a palette which will look good with purple. So I found some colors that I really liked, that I think can really complement the illustration. I grab them and I make a screenshot out of them and paste them in my canvas. As soon as I did that, I will take out the colors of the pictures and make a new color palette in Procreate and add them to it. So I have my color palette for this illustration, and I can get started. So I finished creating my own color palette, and now I'm going to get started with the colors. First I choose a skin color, which I create in another layer. As you can see, I make the other sketch layers a little bit lighter so I can see what I'm doing. And underneath the sketch layer I'm creating this colored layer of her skin color. I just trace her whole face and the part of her body, and you can just make the whole thing that you traced in that one color. You do need to check if everything is nice and even, because sometimes there are some things which aren't colored in and it will look bad in the end. So here I start with the glasses, and the glasses are purple, which was a very important aspect because I didn't tell you why I am illustrating this illustration. So the reason is that I met this woman, this older woman, and it was super random. I was actually sending off a little illustration, and I was at the post office. I was standing at my bike and I felt that there was someone there. Someone stopped in the street, and she stood next to me, but I was bent over my bike because I needed to lock it. And then when I looked up, there was this lady, and she just started talking to me about my hair, how it was so nice that it was so long, and that she wished she could still wear it like that, because when she was younger she had really long hair, like until her ankles, she told me. And when she started telling me about floating on the sea, and then all of her hair was surrounding her and she was almost floating on her own hair. It was so nice to hear, and like I said, it was very random. But then all of a sudden she took off her glasses, because she had these big purple glasses on, and she looked at me, and I saw these really, really bright blue eyes, like piercing blue, and she said, I am 14 years of being 100. So I said, whoa, that's you couldn't tell that was your age. And she told me, that's why I'm telling you, just because I want to hear that I am still young and looking good. So we both laughed, but then she got quite serious, and she told me that in life you get through a lot of things happen. She had been through a lot of things, and she told me to never give up and always be positive. And even though people can get you down sometimes, you should be happy with who you are. And that was something that I thought was really beautiful to hear. And then she told me to be my own queen. That was the message that she gave me, and with that she meant that you should always root for yourself. So whether someone doesn't agree with what you're doing or people try to get you down, just be your own queen and be your own cheerleader, I think she meant, kind of. But she told me to be my own queen, and I really liked the way she said it to me, and it gave me such a good feeling. And I thought it would be a really important message to spread around, because it is important to be your own queen and to root for yourself. So when she told me this, I was kind of like, I just stood there and I didn't really know what to say, and I wanted to thank her. And before I knew it, she walked away and she waved at me and said ciao, and she was gone. It was the strangest and most random experience ever, but it was so fun. And immediately when I got home, I had to illustrate it. So first I wrote it down, like what happened and what she told me. And I started to illustrate immediately, and I created the illustration that I showed you before, which, like I said, I wasn't happy with, and I didn't think she came out the way I wanted her to look. So that's why I started again, and I am creating this one right now. But I thought it would be nice to know the story behind it, because it was such a nice experience, and yeah, it gave me a really good feeling, and I hope this message will come across in the illustration. To be your own queen, root for yourself, no matter what you do. So that's the reason why I really wanted to illustrate this woman, and I really hope that I can still see her again sometime and show her this illustration. So hopefully that will happen, but I'm not sure because I don't know where she lives, of course. She just appeared on the street. So yeah, fingers crossed that I will see her again, and I will definitely show her the illustration and tell her about what it did to me, because I'm not sure if she realized how she made me feel, because I got a really happy and confident feeling after I met her, and yeah, it was exactly what I needed that day. So hopefully maybe by seeing this video you get that feeling as well. But you are your own queen, and you should remember that. So getting back to the illustration for a little bit, as you can see we got a little bit further already. At this point the background is yellow. I will change this at some point because I really don't like it. Especially when I look back at it, I don't get why I made it yellow. But yeah, this is me from the future, and of course you always see things that you don't see during the process. I think sometimes you can look at your illustration so long that you don't realize like what you are creating at some point anymore, and you should take some time to just do something else and get back to it again, and then you can see your mistakes and things that you don't like about it. This is the part that I always love the most, to really zoom in on the illustration and create the details. So for this part it's the eyes, and might be a good note to take whenever you draw eyes, the inside, the so-called white of the eyes, most of the time isn't white. So You can always better use an off-white to make it a little bit more natural than when it's completely white. There might be some white spots in it, some really light areas where the light hits, but yeah, they call it the white of the eye, but most of the time it's not completely white. What I always love to do when I draw eyes is create a shadow above the eye, so it gets more depth. Also, I decided not to use black, but to use a very dark blue. So the color isn't that strong, because it can be really intense if you use black in an illustration which doesn't contain any black areas. And I definitely do want the eyes to pop out, but I want to let them pop out because of the blueness of them and not because of the blackness, if that makes sense. What I try to do to define the eyes a little bit more is to make it darker above the eyes on the lid, kind of as if she's wearing maybe a little bit of makeup. And that's what I'm doing right now. I also create a sort of shadow part by making one really dark layer, then a very light layer, and then in the eyes it's dark again. In that way you get a really contrasty and more 3D look in the eyes. And the light dots are always my favorite to add, because then the eyes really come to life. So yeah, as you can see, I also zoom in and zoom out a lot, because whenever you zoom in and you illustrate something, it's difficult to see what it will look like when you see the bigger picture. So yeah, that's what I keep on doing, and that's the really nice thing about the iPad, that you can just zoom in, zoom out, and look at it from different perspectives. It's amazing. For the lips, I really liked it to give them some texture as well, and she didn't have that dark of a lipstick, so it should be a little bit lighter, maybe like this. And yeah, here you can see that I changed the background into purple. This is what I have right now. I really like the look of the sunglasses kind of disappearing in the background. And also because the sunglasses, the purple color, was something that was really that really stood out to me when I saw this woman, so I figured that would be the main color of this illustration, which I really like how it ended up right now. God, I changed the color kind of slightly, just because it was quite grey, I thought, and since it was such a positive message, I liked it to be a little bit more light and bright to make the message more fitting with the illustration. Whenever I illustrate, there's a lot of going back and forth, so it's never just finished. And that's also something that I tend to do too much, which makes an illustration overworked sometimes, so I really have to be careful not to do that. But you can see me going back and forth, creating parts and then going back to another part, just to make it nicer and more perfect. And that's also why I think my illustrations are never done. I never feel like I'm finished. I don't know if you can relate to this, but my work never feels finished. So the moment that I really have to say, okay, now it's done, yeah, I really hate it. It's really difficult to me. But yeah, so as you can see here, I try to make the hair a little bit more real by just getting some strands and putting them outside of the haircut, you could say. And I really like how the light gray pops out of the purple background. I really like this part. I like how this shading makes the sunglass stand out of the background, but still move into it because it is the same color. I think this gives a really nice effect. I would love to know what you think. Because she told me about how you should be your own queen, I thought it was very fitting to give her past self a crown when she was laying in the water. So that's what I'm drawing right now, and I just thought it should be a simple one, nothing special, just a very simple and clean crown, which was on her head while she's laying in the water. I decided to play a little bit with the background. Lately I really like to make a more textured background. It gives more interest to the illustration, I think. Something I didn't get on video is the fact that I got rid of the hand that I put in the illustration. It was a hand of someone else which was holding her glasses, but I kind of didn't like it and it distracted from the message and the image itself. So I got rid of it. And yeah, that's about it. It's finished. I really hope you like it. I am kind of in love with it. I decided to create a crown tattoo in her neck as well. And yeah, I hope you remind yourself of this message, to be your own queen. I hope you have a really lovely day and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!